Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the 2026 NFL Draft Prospect Show, along with Joey Clinkscales and Brian LeBel. I want to say I'm Harper LeBel. I appreciate everybody being here for the show. And today we're going to talk about a young kid that you haven't heard anything about unless you've been kind of paying attention to the America Bowl and the Senior Bowl, which took place just this past weekend. The Senior Bowl did. Tyron Montgomery, young wide receiver out of John Carroll University. And I didn't stutter, John Carroll University. And people are going, where's that? And where did this kid come from? Very interesting story. We'll go into very brief excerpts of it, but he was a basketball player coming out of high school. He went to LSU. He wanted to walk on and play hoops there. His mother ends up getting sick and he had some academic issues. So he goes back home and he ends up trying to go to Houston. He got involved with some football with backyard with his brother. And his brother says, man, you can play. And you ought to do this. You ought to try it. There was a couple of folks that might have had interest in him. It didn't work out very well. Went from Houston. He had a couple of tryouts with a flag football organization that was going to try to get into the Olympics. He said he wanted to play the real game. He goes to Nicholls State in Louisiana in 2023. Then he transfers, academic again, some issues going on, and he goes to John Carroll. 2 years ago in 2024, he ends up with 17 touchdowns. He breaks the school record, 57 total receptions for over 1,000 yards. And then this past year, he had 119 catches for 1,500 yards, and he had 15 additional touchdowns. And he gets invited to this game, and he does well. So, guys, this is one of these interesting stories that where did this guy come from? He may not be a first or second rounder. We all understand that. He has a lot of football to go. But, Joey, I'm going to ask you first and foremost, do the numbers match up with a reason that you say, I'll bring him into camp? I may not draft him, but I'd love to have a kid like this. I watched him run some routes, and I'm very impressed with his ability to get outside, stop on a dime, break, and be able to catch a ball over the middle of the field.
Well, I'll say this. He's a guy, people have a tendency to talk about what NFL scouts do and what they don't do, and you don't go to small colleges, and this guy deserves a chance. And I'm here to tell you that if a guy can really play football, we'll find him. Okay, and this is an example of that. I mean, this guy, obviously, you told a lot about his background, where he came from, the fact that he was a basketball player. And the fact that he was a basketball player is not a negative, it's a plus. Now, he's really raw, and that's a good thing. That means he'll go in not knowing everything, and teams, a really good receiver coach will say, I can mold this guy into what we want him to be, okay, because he's got fantastic hands. First and foremost, that's the thing you saying, that he make one-handed catches. He'll catch in traffic. He's just very raw as a route runner. He's got good speed, not great speed. I watching him on tape, I would say he's a mid 4.5 to low 4.6 guy. Anywhere between 4.55, 4.60 is what I would think he's going to run. The size is good, not great, but he's not a burner, and he's not twitchy. But that being said, he plays a physical brand of football from the standpoint of his catch radius. In tight windows, he can catch the ball. If the ball's high, he can catch the ball. If the ball's extended, he can catch the ball with one hand. So he has a level of fluidity to him that is not twitchy, but is smooth. And you do see his ability to drop his weight as a route runner to get in and out of things. Again, he's just not sudden. But again, some of that is because he's just so raw in the game. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I do expect this guy to be drafted because, again, from where he came from, and the week of the Senior Bowl, despite having maybe one or two catches in the game, which really didn't amount to it, he was the talk of the Senior Bowl. If you watch clips of him in the Senior Bowl, he made some outstanding catches, both in traffic and down the field. So I do think he performed in front of scouts at the Senior Bowl, the biggest stage at the Senior Bowl. He accredited himself very well during that week of practice. So I think there's a big upside with this guy because he's got body control. He's got great hand-eye coordination. He can make contested catches. So there are a lot of things to like about this guy. He's just raw. Okay, so there's a spot for this guy. And I think we talked about another guy where earlier where I didn't see a great upside. I do see an upside in this guy because he's so raw. and the skill set that he has will only, if he's a worker, which I think he is, will continue to get better. Now, some of the things that bother me a little bit is, he's a little bit of a diva at times, and that's okay for a wide receiver. I mean, it wasn't overly noticeable on tape, but there were times when he didn't get the ball. You see him pouting, and you see him looking at the quarterback and the hand gestures, and quarterbacks don't like that, and offense coordinators don't like that. But that's something I'm not super concerned with because he feels like I'm a John Carroll. I should be getting the ball every time. But there were a couple other receivers that did some good things. But I really do like the upside in this guy because I do think he's tough. And first and foremost, the receiver, despite everything, has to be tough, especially if you're going to be a little bit speed deficient. You have to be tough. And I do think he's tough. And he's got, again, great hand-eye coordination.
Well, it's a shame we've never seen a diva at the position of wide receiver before in the National Football League. So that would be a first. Brian, there are a lot of things to like about him. He hasn't been hit over the middle by a guy named Dawkins or Atwater, Ronnie Lott, Scott Case. He hasn't had any of that yet. But he does make some acrobatic catches. He seems like he's not afraid. It almost as if like I'm watching Randy Moss going against other players from Marshall or against Marshall back in the day. And it's a man amongst boys in some cases with the John Carroll situation. But the Senior Bowl kind of changed my mind. He's going to get some of the top cornerbacks in the game right now, especially from a collegiate level, guys that are all going to get drafted. And he held his own. What impressed you?
I think he's very confident in his game, right? I think there's that diva aspect of it, but I think certain wide receivers, when you kind of get that mindset of, hey, I'm the best player on the field, I think you kind of want that sometimes. I think he's kind of coming into his own. I think he's still got a lot to figure out, right? He's still learning. He's still growing. Joey mentioned he's still a very raw prospect. He's only got a couple of years of football under his belt. But if he had eligibility, there would be so many Division I schools, very good schools, that would be chomping at the bits to try to get this guy to enroll and play football with them, obviously enroll in the spring and then be on the roster in the fall. So it's hard to discount him at the professional level when all these big schools will be wanting him, to play wide receiver for them. So I think that helps him. I think, the numbers, they're eye gouging, right? They your eyes pop out because you're just like, unbelievable how many touchdowns he scored. I mean, he was scoring a touchdown once every 4 catches 2 years ago. And this year, another 15, he had almost 120 catches, over 1,500 yards. I mean, those are, video game type numbers. So, the raw aspect of it is there, yes. But I think, like Joey mentioned, there's going to be a receiver coach that's saying, hey, this kid, if I can come in and teach him how to run routes like I want him to and do the things that I want him to, and he's able to translate, because he's only got a couple years under his belt and he's already kind of figured out how to do it. Maybe, you're in a smaller school, but he's done a very good job, and it's translated because he's put in the work. He's got the talent. And, history has shown guys that have multi-sport backgrounds, especially basketball, if you're a wide receiver, being able to use your body, understanding, positioning is very important at the receiver spot. And guys don't necessarily talk about it a lot, but basketball players, you got to know where the other guy is. You got to understand how to throw your weight around a little bit. You got to understand how to get better positioning. And I think the hands aspect that Joey mentioned, he does have very good hands. And I think that's the basketball background as well. Going up and making a catch. I got the picture right there where it's just, it's fluid. It's effortless how he's able to do that. And I think, that's something that is, you can't even really teach that. Either you kind of have that or you don't. So, the raw aspect aside, I think this kid's got some talent. I think being at the Senior Bowl was really on display for the first time for a lot of people to see, where it was just some kid at John Carroll University not saying, hey, this kid's going up against guys from Kentucky. He's going up against guys from,
North
Penn State, North Carolina.
Kansas.
And he's still making plays. It still looks like he does with the tape at John Carroll. So I think he's a very intriguing guy. I don't know where he goes, but man, if you were able to get him on your roster, kind of bring him in and kind of, refine some things and fine tune what he does, I think he's got a chance to be a good player at the next level.
Joey, a lot of things to like there, and I'm not going to dumb it down too much, but one of the things that impressed me is watching him burst to the outside and create space, and whether he sticks with the route and runs a fade or an outside type of route and breaks it in, or he's able to stop on a dime and come underneath the receiver and create some space. For a guy that really is so young and raw, I was very impressed with that. I'm not saying that's the only thing, but that was certainly something that goes, okay, he certainly looks like a guy that has been playing a lot more football than he has. Everybody has some things that they need to work on. What are some of the things that either impressed or you go, you know what, I got to pump the brakes here a little bit. This may not be the guy that everybody wants, at least maybe not the second, third round. Where are you looking for him to end up landing, and give us a reason why?
Well, I think some of the things you just mentioned about him speaks to his athletic ability. The fact that he does have enough feel and awareness to be able to drop his weight at the break point and, get under a receiver, get under a DB instead of trying to go around the DB, which can create interception. Even if he doesn't catch the ball, which he does most of the time, it's not intercepted because he's able to fight through contact. Physical receivers do a great job of fighting through contact, and at his level, he was able to do that. Now, he's moving up. I mean, this is a big jump for him. But the thing about that jump is when he was able to face guys from big schools at the Senior Bowl, he was one of the standout receivers the week of practice. So that tells you that he's not afraid of competition. He feels like he belongs, and I think he'll only continue to get better. I think this guy will be an interesting guy during the week of the draft, especially throughout the workout season. I think he'll get a lot of visits to a lot of different teams. He'll probably be at Indy, I'm almost certain. And they'll want to know from a learning aspect because he's had academic issues in the past. So they want to know how well he can retain information, how well he learns, and how he learns. Some people aren't able to take it from the board to the field. They have to be visual learners. So they may have to spend a little extra time with him doing things on the field. And then once he sees it on the field, he's got it. So part of being a good coach is knowing how your guys learn best. So I think this player will have a chance to go probably in the middle of the draft. He'll be one of the names that the analysts are talking about, wondering where he's going to get drafted because what they've not only the tape they saw John Carroll, but what he did at the Senior Bowl. And that'll be the topic of conversation the week he had at the Senior Bowl and how well he played.
Joey, before I go to Brian for a final thought, do me a favor and kind of clarify a little bit. Here's a kid that hasn't played much. I take that back. He has played, but not at the level. He's certainly not SEC or Big Ten level. He's not used to playing that at John Carroll or at Nichols. But when he steps up in line and he starts breaking a press coverage or doing something that the other guys that have been playing at that level struggle to do, how does that resonate? Maybe the author of the story, the beat writer writes, hey, well, what's this kid doing? Does it have the same impact on a guy like you or some of the top scouts and certainly some of the coaches that are there? Or is it just hey, we're getting him a shot. He happened to have a very good day in practice today. Let's see what he does tomorrow. What's the impression level that needs to be met in order for them to take him seriously?
Well, let's back up a little bit. Hopefully, this was not his first exposure to the scouts, and I'm sure it wasn't. The fact that he was at the Senior Bowl, meaning he was recommended to the Senior Bowl by not only the Senior Bowl committee, but scouts who help evaluate players and give recommendations to go to the Senior Bowl. So he was a known entity, okay, a known product. So now everybody wants to see how he plays against the better competition, and he was able to play very well and account himself very well versus, some of the best at the Senior Bowl. So from that standpoint, and the coaching. Now, the teams that the funny thing is the teams, the team that coached him in the Senior Bowl and the team he went against in the Senior Bowl, those staffs will have the best feel for him of anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So they will be the ones who will be itching to either draft this guy or spend more time with him. They'll know how he learns because everything he learned at the Senior Bowl from a schematic standpoint was all very new for him, coming from John Carroll. So apparently he acquitted himself very well. So I think everybody will be intrigued because he's so raw. He has a lot to do from a standpoint of route knowledge and route concepts and route awareness. But once he gets that, okay, and if he has the athletic ability, which apparently he does, the sky's the limit for this guy. So you would take this is the third, fourth, fifth round. You would take a guy there that you think can come in and play for you. Now, I will say this, at John Carroll, he wasn't asked to block a whole lot. I saw a lot of times when, things were coming and he's waiting on the next play because he knew he wasn't going to get the ball. That part is going to have to change. But you do see the innate toughness in the player. because he can run through contact and he can make catches in traffic, taking a hit. So you know the kid is tough. So the ask from this player will be different in the NFL than it was at John Carroll. But the talent level, he does have that, and it's all about his will and want to once he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, that want to. That's hard to measure that one. Brian, do me a favor, and there are other 6'1" or 2-inch wide receivers that run a 4.55 and have played a lot more at bigger schools. Why would those guys say, "Hey, I'm not letting this kid get in front of me in line. I'm not going to do that"? How does he impress going against other guys that are similar but have played at bigger schools? He kind of has it. And he has so much to learn, again, being a basketball player first and only playing for a couple of years until he gets at the level that he's at right now. Why would you, as a coach or in that draft room, want to go with the young kid versus another guy that you've seen a lot more tape on?
It's tricky because I think you're always looking to improve your football team, right? First and foremost. And if someone has talent and they can add to, the group of guys you already have, I think you're going to obviously bring them in. Competition is healthy. It's very active in the NFL, right? There are guys fighting for their jobs every single year, every single week. That's part of the game. That's part of what it is. And I think if you're afraid of competition, I think football is probably not the sport for you. And, I think guys are going to be jumping at the bits to, share a wide receiver room with this guy, just because I think realistically, if he's a teammate and he's a stand-up guy, which, I don't have any impression, think he's not, but he's going to be picking everybody's brain, right? If he's doing it correctly, he's going to be asking everybody, right? All the receivers, the coaches, everybody across the board, because for him, he's behind, right? You got guys that have been running the route tree. They've had it down to a science since they were, juniors in high school, right? And he's got to kind of catch up to some of those guys with the fine tuning that we talked about earlier. And he's got to grow pretty quickly. But I think the fact that he was able to do so, bouncing around in the off the field stuff, and he fought and he scratched and he clawed, right? He did everything he could. He said, "Hey, I think I'm good enough to play at the next level. I think I'm good enough to play collegiately." And, the tape is the tape, right? You can only line up against the guys you lined up against. So you can sit here and say, well, what about the kid from Kentucky? And he did great against the guys he lined up against. But Tyron did everything he could at John Carroll University. I don't think there's much more he could have done as far as the tape, as far as his numbers especially. There's not much else that he could have done. He left everything on the field, and I think for him, that's why you give him a shot. You bring him in and say, hey, the worst that happens is he doesn't pan out, and that happens all the time in the league, and it's unfortunate. But I think there's something about the way he carries himself, something about his journey, something about everything that he did to get to this point that kind of speaks volumes to how he is as a person, not just a football player. And I think he's shown that he deserves at least a chance to showcase what he could do at the next level.
So let me add this right quick. Yeah, let me add this right quick. So, you do have instances where guys slide under the radar, okay? And it has nothing to do with whether they're good enough compared to another receiver. This guy obviously was a basketball player. That's the route he initially tried to take, and wasn't a football player. But once he got on the football field, the thing that he has is some of the other players who may be in the same draft, other receivers may not have, is he has an innate ability to catch in traffic. He's got range. He can bend for a guy his size. So the athletic ability, while you have some receivers that are really just straight line guys, you have some guys that never played football, that run track, that can really run, that they're going to scare people with their speed. Well, this guy is probably not going to win the speed game, but what he can win the size and the physicality game. So know thyself. That's what I say. Know thyself. Do what you can do and do it at the highest level. There'll be other people that have a different skill set. They're going to do things at the highest level. So I'm not really, the guy next to him in line, the receiver with the next rep, may not be the same athlete. He may have gone to a bigger school, but he may not be the same athlete that this guy is. So he will be able to play to his strengths, play physical, catch the ball in traffic, make plays when they're there to be made, and get himself seen. Now, again, he's so raw. That's why the coaches will want to work with him a lot, because they'll say he's got all these other things. I can teach this right here. You can't teach athletic ability. You can't teach toughness. Obviously, you can't teach size and speed. But the things, he has some of the things that you can't teach. The toughness, the range, the physicality. I mean, so those things, the things he needs, you can teach him to be a better route runner. You can teach him, if he's tough enough, to be a competitive blocker. So those are the things that will help this guy hopefully develop into a professional wide receiver.
Well, there's a few guys that were able to do it, at least from a basketball to another professional sport. Allen Iverson is the first that comes to mind, where he was a fantastic high school quarterback, goes to Georgetown and, Hall of Fame career in the NBA. And then Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez were able to do that from the NFL perspective, guys that played college basketball and ended up going on and becoming Hall of Famers. And Gonzalez was the first one that I heard. When I heard him say this, I go, this is really an interesting thing, because when I played high school basketball, he said, basketball made me a better football player, and football made me a better basketball player. And the two of them had corresponding toughnesses and agility and getting to the ball and doing all the things that you got to do at the highest level. And I really respect him for saying that, because even though other people have said it, that was the first time I'd heard it where it really resonated, at least for someone like me. So we want to wish Tyron Montgomery out of John Carroll University all the best. We talked about him here a little bit longer than we do normally, but certainly well worth it. We know that he has a chance. He made a great impression at the America Bowl and the Senior Bowl, and he certainly did so with Joey Clinkscales, Brian LeBel, and myself. If you like the show, would you please like and subscribe and share with a friend? We'd certainly appreciate you helping us grow the network. In the meanwhile, we want to thank you for being a part of 100 Yards of Football. This has been our 2026 NFL Draft Prospect Show, again with Brian and with Joey. Wanted to say thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. We hope